Recording. Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Have your attention, please. All quiet, please. Thank you. Go ahead, have your notes out. We're going to be continuing. We're actually in good shape because we wrapped up the notes that we wanted to do on the previous, leading up to episode 2, the Iron Curtain. Shh. I know you guys got a lot on your plate with respect to my class, so if you, and I know that for a fact, because I just know students, that you may not have gotten to actually watching that full episode right on, do get around to that, as well as the episode that you're going to be, I believe we're going to start it in here, because we got a 90-minute period, which is good, and we'll get the notes on the Marshall Plan, episode 3. Then make sure you watch the rest of that. You've already got the links. I've already posted those onto Google Classroom as a classwork assignment. Okay, you know the big thing, obviously, is to get your IA turned in. I've got some of those printed off here. Some of you guys, you've told me you're still working on it. You're going to avail yourself of the next 24 hours. Hopefully there's not too much else on your plate. Get that printed off and bring it in here tomorrow. Okay? There's no IA, there's no ISATs. I'm not going to be here Saturday. There's no ISATs tomorrow. You guys have 3 ISATs. No, you don't. Other people have 3 ISATs next week. So you guys will be, in case you didn't know, I will tell you, you guys are going to be continually working on having the advantage of working on your extended essay, which actually works out pretty well. Should be glad that Mrs. Rao grabbed all that time. I would have grabbed it so that I could have continued on with you as far as like doing the notes and the video in class. But nope, she's got you guys on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday of next week. While other students are doing, 10th graders and others are doing their English ISATs, unless you need to do English ISAT and so forth. But that, I guess, is already being arranged. So you'll be in the cafeteria again Tuesday morning, and Thursday morning, and Friday morning. And I will see you on Tuesday after, whatever, 9:45. I guess that's when it starts, 9:50. And then we'll see you also Thursday. So we'll just have an hour together with you guys. We'll do notes, and then we'll be watching the videos. That's how we're going to pretty much take it all the way to the end of the year in this class. Notes and video. Do you have a requirement to read any chapters in the textbook to prepare for a quiz? No. Okay, that was something I took off so that I wanted to make sure that you were focusing on the video part, because the video part just like hones in. It's a really good documentary video that I rely on a great deal to help prepare you for what you need to know. I'm not going to quiz you on it. Okay? So as far as the textbook is concerned, those of you guys who are going to be in these seats here next year, hang on to the textbooks. I may have mentioned this before. I always mention it to you guys twice and not to the second period, but whatever. But if you're not going to be in here, then just before the end of the school year, just bring around your textbook and I'll get that checked off. Otherwise, we'll give you a little nudge next year in the form of a fee, a fine, whatever, from the school as a way of reminding you that you need to turn that in. Okay? Did that answer the question? Okay. So, obviously the big thing is the IA. Get that turned into me by tomorrow. Okay? Any other questions on anything? Oh, and I did, reminder, I know I mentioned it to you. I just have to remember to mention it second period. Additional points from the last test. I've still got a couple of people in the other class that haven't taken it yet, but I've already got the retake makeup assignment, good for 8 points, in the form of an essay having to do with World War II. That's on Google Classroom, so you can get that in. And I think I've got the due date for that later next week, right? Top priority right now is the IA. Some of you guys have gotten that taken care of because it's in there. Okay, others are going to be working on it over the next 24 hours, so good luck with that. Okay, questions? Okay, it is kind of hurly-gurly and so forth. Be quiet around the choir room this afternoon. The seniors will be doing their Spanish IB test. Okay, yeah. They're almost done. I think they've got, oh my gosh, because they're going to be in here again. Good grief. They're going to be in here next week on Wednesday for biology. And, yeah. Oh, and on tomorrow for chemistry. Those of you who are doing chemistry, they're going to be in here. There's 10 of them. And then they've got 9 doing biology that are going to be in here on Wednesday of next week. So they're getting close to wrapping up. And something to look forward to next year. I don't know when exactly things are, but things kind of wrap up a little bit quicker for the seniors. When you guys are seniors, they wrap up a little bit quicker. And so, like your exams, particularly if you're doing all the IB things and so forth, the teachers, your IB exam is it. Right? For me, yesterday, when I actually did have some seniors in here, they chose to watch Star Wars, the 3rd one. And they skipped through all the boring parts, and they went all to like the Dooku fighting and whatever. And there were quite a few of them were like, you know, going along with all the lines and so forth. I'm like, whatever. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of something to look forward to, because this time next year, you guys are going to be totally wrapping it up. Okay? There'll just be a couple more IB tests for those of you guys who are taking IB tests. And then graduation, they may have already set that. That's been typically the Tuesday after Memorial Day. Yeah, so hang in there, guys. Hang in there. A lot of things to look forward to. Any questions about any of the kind of weird scheduling things going on? Okay. All right, well, let's go ahead and stand for the pledge then. Okay. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah. It's all good. Aiden's going to run for office one day, and somebody's going to go, he's an unpatriotic slob. He didn't take his hat off during the pledge. Yeah, these guys took it off like simultaneously. It's like, whatever. Yeah, I didn't take mine off either, because I got my shield. Yeah. Don't have any official announcements from student council, but when's your election? Is it really? He doesn't have a correct answer, so he just throws out some random date. Maya, when's the election? Saturday? Oh my gosh. Oh, so there's just like a whole week more of like campaigning and stuff. Okay, so good luck to candidates out there. Yeah, that's good. And I think I heard baseball won yesterday, so that was good. Districts. Didn't get a chance to go out myself. They're like, oh, you got to come and do it. I'm like, well, I'll go to your next game. It's in Glens Ferry. Right. And then there's other state games up in like Orfino. Do you guys know where Orfino is? Orfino's in northern Idaho. It's like in the direction of Lewiston and stuff like that. So anyway, other sports updates or anything? All right, you guys ready to dive on in? Okay, let's do this. Wow, enthusiasm. Okay. All right, so today the United States is going to learn how to spend lots and lots and lots and lots of money. Okay, here we go. The notes, to follow along, what you want to have, I think probably the best place to have this as we go through, since I don't stop and spell things, especially things that are difficult. On the last page of your handout, Episode 3, Marshall Plan. Okay, so when I say like things like Jan Mossrick, I don't have to stop and spell that for you. Or defenestration, oh my gosh. Yes, some of you guys remember defenestration from the 9th grade. Do you remember the city where the defenestration occurred, where the Catholic authorities went after the Protestant authorities and the Catholic authorities got thrown from the window? It was in Prague. And that is where the defenestration is going to take place. So if you ever go to Prague, in what is now the Czech Republic or Czechia, and you ask where did the defenestration of Prague take place, you'll get multiple answers. Okay? There's the defenestration at the beginning of what set off the 30 Years' War back in the 1500s. And then there's the defenestration, sadly, that took place in 1948. And it's going to be a very important one, because it's going to help persuade Congress to step up on behalf of the United States to spend money. Write this down. The United States is going to spend a lot of money. Now, when I give you the numbers, you're going to look and go, oh my gosh, that's like one day of the COVID relief package plans that have come through Congress and so forth. And keep an eye on that, because that's one of the things, inflation is upticking. because there's been a lot of money that's been generated for COVID relief in our country, and that tends to add a bit to inflation. You guys don't really know inflation. When I was your age, the inflation rate was, 10, 15% and so forth. I mean, there was just like the regularity of like prices going up, and not just gas prices going up in the summer, like everything. So that's when you talk to old people, they're like, I remember when candy bar cost 10 cents. Thank you. So maybe you're going to be in that position because you'll talk about how much stuff cost when you were young, but when you get a whole bunch of years of inflation, which hopefully we won't have, but if you do that, it usually doesn't come back to those prices. So when you talk about how much you paid for whatever, younger generations will look at you and go, oh, you just like essence of oldness. Yeah, right. So, and here's the good news, ladies and gentlemen. The rate of change is increasing, so you're going to become old faster than I did. Yeah, I mean, already, like my kids, they're in their mid-20s, and they're like, I just can't relate to this new young generation and so forth. I'm feeling old already. All of the stuff, it comes and it goes, and it comes and it goes and it comes. Anyway, but what was the big deal in the United States and in the world after World War II? A lot of changes going on, okay? A lot of pressure, okay? Last time we saw, write this down, Truman announced, and he got support from Congress. Obviously, he's getting support from former Prime Minister Winston Churchill. He's getting support from all kinds of stuff. We got to stop the Soviets. Write it down. Stop the Soviets. The Soviets bad. Soviets like all about, it's all about communism, but it's very interesting because the Soviet variety of communism, in the Soviet Union, do they allow for like, oh, we'll let the people choose whether or not they like this communist thing? Or is it just kind of forced on them? Absolutely forced. Now keep in mind, because you will see, and we'll talk about communist alternatives in democracies. And it's an interesting thing. If you're a communist party in France or Italy and you're running for election and trying to say, hey, we want the communist agenda elected, given to the people and so forth, does that necessarily mean that if the communists are elected, they're going to shut down democracy and rule like a totalitarian regime? That's the charge of their opponents. Do they have anything historically to say that that's what communists do? Yeah, the Soviet Union. Yeah, I mean, they weren't elected. They actually came into military power, and they never surrendered it. Okay? It's not going to be until the end of the Cold War when we get to Mikhail Gorbachev, and he's going to be like, hey, let's have free elections in Russia. Wow, the Communist Party is not so popular. Yeah, but it's an interesting thing, because if you've got a left-wing agenda, communists and so forth, people will be very suspicious. How about a right-wing agenda? If a right-wing political party says, hey, vote for us in the elections, we're going to put in our right-wing political philosophy and so forth, is that suspect? Does it look like maybe they'll establish some totalitarian regime? I don't know. Was there ever anybody that actually got elected in a country in Europe and then impose a totalitarian right-wing regime? Yeah, exactly, Hitler. I mean, that's a clear example where somebody turned an election into a totalitarian dictatorship. Mussolini, he just charged in and took power, by shutting things down. So this is an interesting dynamic as we go along here. We are going to today tell you about how the United States got involved in another country's election. And you get one guess. Mia, you get one guess. You get 3 letters. You have to put them in the correct order. What is the new United States government agency that was created in the late 40s that is going to carry out a covert, undercover electioneering effort in Italy? I'll give you the first letter. C. Shh.
Are his dries due? No.
And Mia said? Actually, it's like CIA, but Mia. Anyway, it's like CIA instead of MIA, CIA. Okay, well, I'm glad you're not MIA anymore. I'm glad you're here. If you've got your paper, you can turn that in to me. Otherwise, you can get that turned in tomorrow. Tomorrow? Tomorrow, Mia? What? Final draft of IA. Yes. Okay. So have your notes out. Come on, chop, chop. Let's go. Yeah, hello. Yeah. CIA, MIA, History IA. There we go. All right. Okay, cancel IA. All right, here we go. What you need to write down is at the end of the Cold War, the Communist Party in Europe actually had some legitimacy. Okay, they did, because in places like Italy and France, if you were a communist, were you going along with the fascist regimes of Mussolini or Hitler and so forth? No. Write this down. Communists were part of the underground. Communists were part of the resistance. Okay? Now, of course, here's the thing. After the World War II is over, the United States and our democratically oriented and capitalistically oriented allies, we are completely suspect of any communist party. And in fact, if you're a communist party in Italy or France, some democracy, would you willingly receive aid and support from the Soviet Union? Because they want to give it to you. They want to see you succeed. They want to see a communist party in power in places like Italy and West Germany and in France and so forth. They want to see that. Okay? But does their support have strings attached? What kind of strings attached? We don't need that. We want you to set up a communist government like the one we have in the Soviet Union. This is why the Soviet Union hated communism, the communist dictator in Yugoslavia. Even though he was a dictator, he wouldn't answer to Stalin. By the way, these things haven't gone away. One of the countries in the world today, Dan's going to be like, I know exactly what you're talking about. One of the countries in the world today that's got a lot of money because they've sold a lot of stuff to us and other countries. And they've taken that money and they now turned it into loans. They will give loans to other countries to help their development, their economic development. It's really nice. And they give those loans out, and then part of the agreement is, well, we're going to give you these loans, but you're going to have to spend the money in a certain way, and you're going to have to hire certain companies, and some of these companies actually come from their own country. What country am I talking about? China. China is using its economic wealth to gain a greater foothold in the world. Wow, I wonder where they got that idea. Write it down, the United States of America. No, I mean, it's like one of those things. I mean, we're not the first one to come up with it. If you are a powerful country, especially economically powerful, you want to set up a situation so that you have a way of continually influencing what is going on in other parts of the world. Okay? So put this down. You ready? The United States is especially interested in influencing how things turn out in Western Europe. And the major countries there that we're going to be talking about, West Germany, France, Italy. They have democracies, or at least new democracies in West Germany and Italy. They got new democracies. They have capitalism. They've been doing that for a long time. And we want them to remain capitalist and democratic. Oh, but we want something even more. If they're going to be democratic, what kind of political parties do we want them to elect? Everyone except for communists. And we're not too thrilled if they want to elect right-wing governments. But we're more interested in, like, center parties, right parties, a little bit to the left maybe, but not communists, because we're afraid that might be an opening for the Soviets. So here we go. Write it down. Italy. We're very concerned about what's going on in Italy. In Italy, there are communists. There are like 2 million members of the Italian Communist Party. They're well organized. That's and 2 million actually is quite a few. I mean, Italy's got a big population. I don't have the actual numbers for the total population of Italy there, but it's a significant. And actually, as we go through this, I'll give you a heads up. There is an expectation in the year 19. When is this one going to be? I think it's 1948. I'll have to double check on the details there. But in the late 1940s, there's a national election, and it looks like communists are going to win. They've got things organized. They've got a lot of popularity in the sense that, like, we stood up to the fascists. We stood up. We were part of the coalition that fought against the bad guys in World War II. Okay? And it looks like they could do very well. Does the United States want them to win? No. Okay? No. Does the Soviet Union want them to win? No. Well, what kinds of conditions are most supportive of people in a country going, the heck with this stupid capitalist democratic system, let's go with something that really get the job done? Economic success or economic failure? In which situation of those two is it more ripe for a big swing to the hard left? Economic failure, write it down. Economic failure. Is there economic failure or economic challenges that exist in Europe after World War II? Heck yeah, you've got countries that have been at war, and some of them have been seriously bombed out, you know. It's not good, okay? And the Soviets are like, hey, yeah, we'll just let you collapse, and then we can come in and pick up the pieces, and we can support like a military insurrection by hardline communists, and then they'll be our friends. Wow, it's easy. We didn't have to come marching in with a Red Army and so forth. Maybe they'll just be invited in. Okay? There's a real fear of that. The Red Army is a huge, huge force. And so far, Italy, West Germany, France, and other countries in Western Europe are not going along with that, but they could. So what is the U.S. solution? Invest in Western Europe. Write it down. This is going to be referred to, you can call it by either of two names. The European Recovery Program, or, as we see right here, the Marshall Plan. Okay? Either one of those terms is going to be used. And the reason why it's called the Marshall Plan, I mean, George C. Marshall, do you see him up there? He's going to be the Secretary of State initially under President Truman carrying out the policy. And, of course, he was a top general under Franklin D. Roosevelt during World War II. Okay? Very, very, very highly regarded in the West, in the United States, and in Western European countries. And he and Truman and others are going to say, United States, spend money. Give money. Loan money. But mostly give money. Actually, let me ask you guys. How many of you guys, your life would be in a good position 10 years from now if nobody, anybody, government or parents or anybody, spent any money on you? Like, let's say we'll get you to the end of your high school. So you're at the end of high school, and then you want to continue pursuing various different plans and so forth, all right? And let's just say, no money. Parents don't give any money. The state of Idaho doesn't give any money. The federal government doesn't give any money. Where would you be after 10 years? Could you scrap something together to move yourself into a good position, or would it be just pretty difficult? It would be a lot harder, yeah. Who wants Western Europe to be in that kind of predicament? The United States or Soviet Union? Soviet Union, write that down. The Soviet Union wants to keep the West destabilized. They don't want West Germany to like not having to pay reparations. They want to keep West Germany having to pay reparations. They don't want West Germany to be united. They don't want West Germany to be a thriving democracy because they see West Germany ultimately as potentially a threat. And they want that same bad situation for the other parts of Europe because it works in their favor. Okay? So we come up with the Marshall Plan. What do the Soviets think of that? They hate it. Okay? Now, we're being all nice. If someone gives you a gift, right? So, like China. If China were to sponsor your education, would you accept that? You can go to any college you can get into. You don't have to worry about tuition. Don't have to worry about out-of-state fees or anything like that. China says, we invest in you. Haley, would you accept that money? Or would you be concerned about any strings attached or quid pro quo or something you have to do for them? What would come from that? Yeah, you always have to be careful. Who is the one who's signing your checks? Because you're like, hey, I don't need another check from you. I'm good. Or do you? Let me throw this out to you. How many of you guys expect to get some financial support from your parents as you move forward in life, certainly in your next 5 or 10 years? Okay? Do they expect anything from you that you can't deliver? Oh, there we go. So, and then eventually down the line, Danton, how's that going to work out for you? Do they expect anything else? Is that sort of unwritten? Do they want to retire?
Yeah.
Yes.
My dad abandoned me when I was
Okay, whatever. Okay, all right. Yes, Garen.
I guess the council's a first person they take care of that.
Yeah, there is a little bit. How many of you guys are like, I'm cool looking after my parents when they're much older? One or both of them? Heck no! Oh my gosh. Wow. You're gonna, as you guys discuss college loans and things like that, you're gonna be like, here, why don't you invest in like, some retirement funds and nursing home and long-term health care and things like that? Are you gonna go, there's the government, they can take care of you anyway? Yeah, good luck with that. That's gonna be very interesting. So, the Soviets, they know what the United States is up to. Write this down. The nice thing about the Marshall Plan is here's a bunch of money. Here's a bunch of money. Either, in fact, I'll go ahead and tell you right now. When the Marshall Plan comes out, 80% of it is grants. You're like, what's a grant as opposed to a loan? Stephen, do you know what a grant is as opposed to a loan? If you're going to college and let's say you have to, I don't know, your ultimate college bills run upwards around $40,000, $80,000 and so forth. If you have an opportunity to get money to help pay those bills, Stephen, what would you rather have, a grant or a loan? Okay, what do you know about a loan? What do you have to do with respect to a loan? You have to pay it back, exactly. So a grant is free money. You can write that down. 80% of the Marshall Plan is going to be free money. Okay? It's like here's a gift. Spend it on whatever you need to do. When you're looking for scholarships and so forth, that's typically what a scholarship is going to be, is free money. Okay, you might have to do this or keep your grades up or whatever, meet the various different requirements, but scholarships are cool, okay? And your teachers will help write recommendation letters and so forth for you to get whatever scholarships you can. And take some time and effort to go look through and find out the best scholarships, because grants are cool. The Marshall Plan is made up of 80% grants. Free money. So the United States is like, here, take this money. Looks pretty good on the face of it, or low interest loans. Write that down. Low interest loans, as in you have to pay it back, but the interest rate is less than if you had just gone into a bank to get that loan. Does that make sense? You still have to pay it back. That's why I was like, I don't know. Yeah, you guys will fill out the FAFSA form when you go to college. The FAFSA form, where they'll tell you how much grant money you can get from the United States government based on the economic position of your family. And it's really cool if the government's like, here's a whole bunch of grants if your family's income is like not super great. But what you might also get is the government might say, hey, you're eligible for a bunch of low interest loans, which you will still have to pay back. When do you have to start paying those back? When you finish school, because the expectation is when you finish school, college, and then grad school and so forth, you will be earning money. And then you have to start paying those student loans back. Anyway, it's an interesting thing. Some of you guys are like, I know about this. This is why I'm working really hard now and being very careful and cautious and trying to get myself into the best position moving forward. Okay? And even then, some of these, make a little note of this, some countries, I think most of them are pretty good about paying their loans back, but sometimes, a country's like, oh my gosh, what are you going to do? I can't pay the loan back, and if I do have to, then it's going to be economic calamity. And you don't want that, do you? You don't want that. And so then the loans are forgiven or they're extended. How many of you guys know anybody in your family, maybe you, that have ever been given a loan by the parents and then ultimately they're like, they didn't force you to pay? Yeah, some of you guys know people in particular. I'm going to borrow money to go on a trip. I'll pay it back someday. Forget about that. Yeah. So, that's an interesting dynamic. Write this down. Clear number one position. The United States wants these Western European countries to succeed and remain democratic and remain capitalistic. And here's the third kicker. And this is what we're really looking for. What do we really want? Cole, what do you suppose we really want from France, from the Netherlands, from Denmark, from Norway, from Italy, from West Germany? What do we want our relationship to be with them moving forward? Strong. Militarily connected? Supportive? Absolutely. We want that. And the Soviets see right through that. We're all trying to be nice and everything, like here's a bunch of nice money. But ultimately the United States, most, not all, most of the countries that receive Marshall Plan aid become, bless you, allies. Exactly. because they're like, hey, we want to remain democratic, capitalistic, success, and so forth. So the Soviets don't like that, okay? Here's the thing. Write this down. In the 1940s, the early Czechoslovak government, they're looking at accepting Marshall Plan money. Write that down. And this is fascinating. This is actually one of the saddest things. In Eastern Europe, of the Eastern European countries that the Soviets occupied, Poland, Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, East Germany, Czechoslovakia had the longest tradition of democracy. They actually were a democratic country before World War II. And so some of those same people start thinking, oh, we can come back into power after the Soviet army is there. They're going to learn very hard, very soon. That's not what the Soviets intend for them. And here's the first indicator. These Czechoslovak leaders are like, wow, there's money from the United States of America. We could really use that to help our economy, to help rebuild. Let's open up discussions with the United States about accepting this money. The Soviets said, no, no. They threatened the Czechoslovak leaders, walk away from that. We're going to see this is going to be an issue as we go through the Cold War, because sometimes these East European countries are going like, we don't want to be part of this Soviet-dominated Eastern European thing. And they're trying to squeeze out of it, and the Soviets go, bam! Bam! Hungary, 1956. Bloodshed all over Budapest. Czechoslovakia, 1968. Bloodshed. Those countries trying to break free. Well, here in the 40s, the Czechoslovaks learned very quickly the Soviets do not want them to put aid in there. Okay, there's the European Recovery Plan. Oh, we'll get to that in a second. 16 European countries, write this down, 16 European countries sign up. And ultimately, you'll have $20 billion. Which again, I mean, for you and I, $20 billion is a lot of money. But I mean, I was just hearing on the news last night, the amount of money that the United States is spending this year compared to the amount of money that's coming in taxes, that's called a deficit, right? Spending is more than what's coming in taxes and revenue. And I think we've got a record deficit for 1 year in excess of $1 trillion. I want to say it's like 1.7 or 1.9 trillion dollars. But you know, hey, whatever, in World War II, we spent a lot of money too because there was a crisis. There was World War II, and we were coming out of COVID. Okay? Although some of the folks are going, well, maybe we'll not spend as much on unemployment benefits. Governors of many states, including Idaho, have now sent the word out that if you're on unemployment, you're not going to be getting an additional check from the state of Idaho after like June. Because some of the employers are looking around going, wow, nobody's coming back to work. It actually, I mean, it's an economic decision. It makes more sense to stay at home and receive unemployment check from the federal government and from the state than it does to go back into a particular work situation. So anyway, Governor Little was not the first governor, but I have a feeling there's going to be several more doing that. But anyway, $20 billion, write this down. 16 nations come up with $20 billion, or accept the $20 billion. What is Stalin's plan for his captive countries? And look at that. The light red ones are his captive countries. Yeah, Bulgaria, Romania, People's Republic of, Hungary. There's Czechoslovakia, Poland, and then GDR, that's East Germany. Okay? Remember the kind of the purple one? It's communist, but it's not got Soviet troops in there. That's Yugoslavia. What is Stalin's response? Two things. Comic-Con and common form. That's his thing. Yeah, Comic-Con. You get all dressed up in your favorite Marvel costumes and you hang out and it's just cosplay. It's a lot of fun. No, it's not. Okay, Comic-Con is the Soviet, like that's the economic assistance plan for all you communist Soviet-dominated countries. And then you'll like it. You'll like it. You will not be able to get any Marshall Plan. No, none of the Eastern European countries are going to be allowed to accept that. Yugoslavia will, because they're a separate country. So we will give money to a communist country, but they're kind of like a good communist country because they're not dominated by the Soviet Union. It's kind of weird that way, yeah. And then there will be common form, political coordination. Let me just throw this out to you. the power structure? Is it going to be like one for all and all for one? Everyone has an equal voice around like King Arthur's round table? I don't think so. Who's going to be in charge of Common Forum and Comic-Con? Stalin. Yeah, the Soviet Union. Exactly. That's the way it's going to be set up. It's not going to be very open. Okay? Yeah. And just to make sure, here we go. Just to make sure in Czechoslovakia that the Czech leadership understands exactly what's going on, a coup takes place. Okay? A coup takes place in February of 1948. A coup as in the Soviets and their cooperative folks within Czechoslovakia will remove from any government position anyone who is a non-communist. So it really puts to the lie that, like, oh, well, you know, these people can form whatever government they want. No, Stalin doesn't want that. And so they will remove them within a 5-day period. The one that is most notable is Jan Mossrick. Okay? Jan Mossrick, I want to say his father was like the last president, or maybe one of the early presidents of free, independent, democratic Czechoslovakia. So Jan Mossrick was not a communist, very well regarded among the Czech and Slovak peoples. He was the foreign minister, so he's like the equivalent of our Secretary of State. Very top official, very highly regarded. He was found dead. March 10th, 1948. You can see on the picture there. He was found dead, like on the second floor, third floor, outside of his home, on the ground. Soviet authorities and Soviet-supported authorities said it was suicide, that he killed himself. A lot of other people, including the West and a lot of Czechs themselves, Czechs and Slovaks, said no. They believed he was killed, that he was pushed out of the window of his home. Okay? That this is what the Soviets will do. So you can imagine a scene there. If he was murdered, defenestrated, pushed out of a window, you can imagine he had made it clear to the Soviet authorities, the communist authorities in Czechoslovakia, that he was not going to play ball with them. So, rather than just fire him and have him be a voice outside of government that could criticize him from the outside, you know how that works? You know, a voice in the wilderness. You know, Winston Churchill wasn't in government power in the 1930s, and he was spouting off and spouting off. But that's Britain. You can do that. You can do that in the United States. Right? You can be former president. We got all kinds of former presidents with all kinds of different opinions and so forth. Is that cool in the United States? Yeah. But they handled it a different way, it looks like. They killed him. Okay? You got that? What's the response going to be in the United States of America to this murder of a democratic leader in Czechoslovakia? Well, I'll tell you what, Congress at that time was considering whether or not to vote for this massive spending bill, the Marshall Plan. This cinched it. Members of Congress looking over what's happening in Eastern Europe, they're like, oh my gosh, those guys really are dangerous. They really are trying to gain absolute total control of Eastern Europe, and we do need to do something about it. So it passed. The first $5 billion of the Marshall Plan passed. Okay, and as I mentioned to you, 20% loan, 80% grant. And it's going to go to all those 16 countries. Here we go. There's the 16 countries. Okay? And you can see it lines up almost perfectly. Almost all of these are going to be NATO allies, military allies of the United States of America. There's a couple that aren't. Switzerland, for example, they get some money, and they're going to be like, yeah, it's cool, you can be neutral. Austria, the same thing. They're going to be forced to remain neutral. This map doesn't show it, but eventually Yugoslavia is also going to get some Marshall Plan aid. Do I have the number there? Yes, $150 million in aid. $150 million to Tito, the communist dictator of Yugoslavia. Why are we giving money to a communist dictator in Yugoslavia? Because he's not a Soviet communist dictator. He's kind of like trying to play it a little bit both ways. We gave money to Ireland and so forth, but look at the biggest recipients here. Britain, they needed it bad. They were, as I mentioned, they were on rations. France needed it big time. Western Germany and Italy. And are there strings attached? Well, yeah, as it turns out, yeah. Over a 4-year plan, we'll have, ultimately, about $20 billion and so forth, 16 countries. And it comes in different ways. Some of it is actually kind of cute. Greece. Here we go. Greece. They're going to get $700 million. $700 million. And so how'd you like to be the guy in charge of distributing $700 million to Greece? Here's from the United States. Here's $700 million. Like, oh my gosh, that'd be like, how many of you guys would like to win a really big lottery sweepstakes? Would you like that? Could you handle it? Could you handle that kind of influx of money and so forth? You guys want to be the financial planner for your classmate that wins a massive lottery. Okay, because you might need that. Okay, so here's one of the things they do in Greece is that sometimes it's money spent for various different things. Sometimes, write this down, it's in kind. It's something from the United States sent over to that country. And I'll give you an example for Greece. So put this down. U.S. companies are benefiting from this because sometimes what is purchased is stuff from U.S. companies or U.S. businesses and then sent over to Europe. You got that? In Greece, after all their wars and so forth, they were missing a lot of farm animals. Yeah, particularly mules. Yeah, I know, like a lot of Greek mules had been killed. So what did we send them? I love this, and it's great. I love this in the movie, in the documentary. I don't know if we'll get to it today, but you will. We've got like a farmer, and he's like, I got an American mule. Write this down. An American mule. From I think they call them like Missouri mules. And they are quite different. The Greek mules are like, yay high. But the American mules are big. They're a little ornery, but they've got, they can pull a plow. So they've got this one cute scene in there where they've got like a Greek mule harnessed up right next to an American mule, and it looks kind of like they're going to go, it looks a little bit out of joint. But was it successful? Is Greece going to continue on as a capitalist democracy ally of the United States of America? Yes. Okay. All right. France. Write this down. In France, there were some strings attached. Okay? If you guys know, actually I'm going to ask you, our expert on car manufacturers, can you give me the name of a major car manufacturer in France? I'll give you a clue. It starts with R. See if he gets, I think he's going to get it. You got it. Renault. Very good. Write this down. Renault. Very big car manufacturer in France. R-E-N-A-U-L-T. Renault. It looks like Renault, but it's pronounced Renault. There was a big strike going on at Renault. Workers are like using their position to try and get various different conditions and so forth from Renault, from the French government. And the United States is like, okay, yeah, we're not going to give you the money until you stop the strike and get things moving on in a pro-capitalist form and way. And they did. They got the strike under control, and we freed up $2.7 billion to France. You understand that? Trust me. Yeah, $2.7 billion. Like you can see on the chart there, France did end up getting a lot of the money. And that is going to help France stabilize and become a solid ally. Although if you're a communist in France, and so forth, you're like, the United States seems to be pushing their weight around. Ladies and gentlemen, get used to this the rest of your life. Do you think China is going to be, for much of your life, going to be trying to push its weight around in the world? You can count on it, okay? You can look at this and go, well, shame on the United States of America using economic influence and so forth, although other people would chime in and go, well, it's ultimately for a good cause, democracy and capitalism. So shame on the Chinese for trying to use their military economic weight to try and get their way around the world. But it's for, what is the, is China trying to expand democracy in the world? Capitalism? Yeah, they're cool with capitalism. That's what's helped them actually be successful. Thank you, Deng Xiaoping. Okay. Yugoslavia, as I mentioned. Okay, Yugoslavia, We got Marshal Tito there, and in 1948 he's like, sure, United States, send over some money. Got 150 million in aid. We're willing to give it to a communist dictator as long as it's not a Soviet-backed communist dictator. And in fact, here's the deal. If we could have gotten into Eastern Europe, would we have hoped to maybe pull those guys a little bit closer to our orbit, to our situation? Let me ask you today. Eastern European countries, Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, Czechoslovakia broke into two countries, Czech Republic and Slovakia. Guess which ones of those are members of the Economic European Union, as well as the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the military alliance with the United States of America? And the answer is all of them. At the end of the Cold War, that's what those Eastern European countries wanted. They wanted to join the team with the rest of Western Europe. Okay? All right. Let's talk about, the plan is working. It's working. Let's talk about Italy. This is the last thing before we get to the video here. Italy. Okay? April 1948. Here we go. Italy in April 1948, there is going to be, I think that's the date of the election, national election. They have them all the time. Oh my gosh. They have a national election, they form a coalition government, and then they have another election. It just keeps happening. Put this down. The Popular Front is actually the same name as the leftist coalition that occurred in Spain right before the Spanish Civil War. The Popular Front. Here's what you need to know about the Popular Front in Italy. Communists and other left-wing political parties forming up a coalition to try and help themselves win a national election. And they're doing pretty well. You're going to hear from communists in Italy. Literally, they're going to be crying because it's like they came so close to winning it all. And they were going to. It's kind of like things were a little bit chaotic in Italy, and the communists were putting forth a positive message of helping out all the poor people and redistribution of wealth and benefits and all kinds of various different things. But the United States, no, we didn't want that. And other forces within Italy didn't want that because we're afraid. If they elect communists, maybe, then there won't be any more elections. Germany, 1930s. There's concern about that. So we've got a new, here's the Missouri Mule, sorry. I should be clicking this forward. There's a big old mule. Okay. There's the French strike. Okay. They get the money after. Okay. There's Tito getting his money. I'm sorry, I forgot I had the slides actually put in here, but okay. Here we go. This is exactly what I want to talk about. There was a law that was passed in 1947 called the National Security Act. It's a very, very important law that was passed by the United States government. Okay? Little thing that says, created the Department of Defense, changed the name. Used to be, anybody know, what was the Department of Defense called before it was called the Department of Defense? Because it existed from the very beginning of the United States of America. Anybody know? The Department of War. Which is kind of, it's not very PC to say, oh yeah, we're all about war. Because the reality is we're about preventing war or we're winning war, take your pick. So now we call it the Department of Defense. But here, all right, so we got all military forces under one command. We got a chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Okay, so we got all the different departments, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. Now we've got the Space Force and so forth in there. So we got the chairman of the Joint Chiefs who works under the president. This one's critical. The creation of the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, that is going to be created by the United States government to carry out overt, but in particular, covert. Do you ever know what covert means? If you told me, would you have to kill me? That's covert. It's very, very secret. Covert is secret. Overt means it's for everyone to know. The CIA carries out covert activities. And in fact, typically a CIA employee is not going to tell you that they're a CIA employee. They'll tell you that they work for something else. So if they're working in the United States Embassy officially, like as a State Department employee dealing with agriculture, they might actually be doing some CIA work. Okay? I remember my dad recruited out of the school. He decided to go to law school and so forth as opposed to joining the CIA. They were heavily recruiting in those days. They will be recruiting among you guys too. They like smart, they like careful, they like people who know their history, they like people that know culture, they like people that are loyal. Yeah, there's opportunities there, okay? So, and of course, they're going to be sort of run by the director of the CIA, and we'll keep an eye on this, because as we go through the Cold War, sometimes the CIA is like, we're going to get this thing done because it's the right thing to do. The heck with consequences and the means and so forth. This is going to be an issue as we go through. Right? So it was like, maybe we should, two of you guys are doing your IA on this, maybe we should find out the effects of really like highly, what would you call them, psychotic drugs and so forth. LSD, things like that. Yeah, let's try some of these experiments and so forth. The CIA operation we're going to be talking about in Italy is mild in comparison to some of the stuff that's going to be coming down as we go along. And eventually in the 1970s, a United States senator, among others, Frank Church from Idaho, is going to head up a committee that's actually going to look into what the CIA is doing, going, oh, maybe you shouldn't have been doing that and that and that. So we're going to try and bring it back in. So, created as part of this effort to fight the Cold War and win the Cold War. Okay? All right? Also created the National Security Council, which the president is going to be heading up on that, to keep an eye on these things. We've got to win this thing. So here's the CIA covert action in the Italian national election of 1947. They're going to spend money. Write this down. There will be money spent. Okay? And the United States is going to spend money helping to support, in politics, the ones we want to win. Got it? And who do we want to win the Italian election? Not the communists. Not the Popular Front that they communists are part of. Here is the name of the biggest non-communist political party in Italy. And I think it still is today. You ready? It's called the Christian Democratic Party. Okay, it's kind of a right-wing, center-right political party. And typically, if they're part of the government, they're usually part of a coalition. Surprise, surprise, spoilers, write this down. The Christian Democrats are going to win the election. Okay, they're going to win. And they actually won't even need to form a coalition after that election. They're going to win an outright majority with help from a number of supporters, including the United States of America. We're going to send money for like posters and electioneering equipment. And if there was an internet in those days, do you think we might have some people on the internet trying to do things to prop up the people we want and to smack down the people we don't? Yeah, I mean, that's what kind of goes on. I mean, were there outside governments in the last two presidential elections that were trying to influence the outcome of our election? Yes, right? And then you basically get into a question of, well, there's a lot of things going on in the internet and so forth in American elections, and how much did that actually influence? That's a little bit harder to tease, depending on who you talk to. The election of 2016, the Russian influence was too much that helped Trump to get elected. Other folks say, well, it was there, but it wasn't enough considering everything else that was going on and so forth. All right? But put this down. The United States tried to and did attempt to influence the outcome of the Italian election. And it's so cute, the way we did this. I love this. We found all kinds of Italian Americans in our country, okay, with families still back in Italy, and we organized a letter writing campaign. Oh my gosh. It was a snail mail campaign. Yeah. And so we organized American Italians to write to their families back in Italy telling them, don't vote for the communists. The communists are godless, atheists, and terrible people, and bad, 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 bad. Right? And what is the major religion in Italy? Catholicism. Very good. Catholicism. Anyway, yeah. Catholicism, the Catholic Church. Okay? And I want to say, like, there were even communists that were still like members of the Catholic Church and so forth. All right? You know? What is the title of the head of the Catholic Church? The Pope. Write it down. Pope Pius the 12th was the Pope at that time. Do we have his name in there? Yep, there he is. Pope Pius XII, Pope Pius the 12th. He didn't like communists. And he's going to put, if any individual trying to influence the outcome of that Italian election, I would give most of the credit or blame, depending on your perspective, to Pope Pius the 12th. Because he basically said to Italian Catholics, the communists are all wrong. And if you want to be a good Catholic, you cannot at the same time be a communist. Now, is that just sort of like a little minor, like, oh, think about it? Or does he have the authority within the framework of the Catholic Church, as the head of the Catholic Church, to do something else, to put a little additional pressure on that? Anybody have any idea? If you're a communist and you want to remain a Catholic, but you want to remain a communist too, raise your hand. What can the Pope do to you? Write it down. Excommunicate. Kick you out of the Catholic Church. This is actually fascinating. Now, it's not just sort of like, oh, well, you're not going to be on the rolls anymore. Jeremiah, do you have any idea of like what that might be, might that mean in practical terms for somebody who wanted to participate within the Catholic Church who had been excommunicated? Could they? What kinds of things could they no longer participate in? Communion, right. So attending the Mass and having Holy Communion. You can write that down. So you can't attend Mass, you can't get the Holy Communion. Okay? You understand that? Like the bread and the wine and so forth. They're a very integral part of Christian belief systems and Christian practices, and also with the Catholic Church. Also, if you wanted to get married, and you wanted that marriage to be officially recognized within the Catholic Church, only a priest can carry that out. So if you're excommunicated, could a priest officiate at a marriage between an excommunicated person and another Catholic? No, they won't marry you. Write that down. In fact, you'll get tears from another guy, a communist, or maybe it was a woman, I can't remember, that was like, I couldn't marry, my betrothed because they got excommunicated. I mean, this is like full-on pressure from within the Catholic Church. So yeah, the United States organized a letter-writing campaign, but I dare say that the Catholic Church put a lot, they basically referred to it as a holy war. Okay? Here's some of the propaganda. What's going on here? This would be an Italian communist poster. You guys are getting a lot of practice in kind of reading media and so forth. Here is a, vote the Popular Front. Happy husband, happy wife, happy baby, vote communism, it's good for you, right? Here is the message coming from the other direction. Bad, Soviet, hammer, sickle, killing, tension, do not vote for the communists and so forth. Wow. There's the Pope. This is a holy war. Communists are excommunicated. Is that going to have an impact on the Italian population as they move into the next into the time to vote for the election? Yeah, there you go. There's the result. That is, sometimes you see that like on indicators of like which political party is in which. The light blue would be the indicator for the Christian Democratic Party. Okay? The red would be, I believe, the Popular Front, so communist and maybe some socialists and so forth. And then the other political parties are pretty minor in that particular election. So the Christian Democrats won an outright majority in that national election. You got it? Landslide victory. Yeah. And so, I'm going to ask you another question. Yeah. Since they won an absolute majority in the election, right? They're going to stabilize, they're going to be in NATO, they're going to be democracy, they're going to be capitalism. Make a little note of this. The Communist Party is not going to go away in Italy. And it's not going to go away in France. It's actually going to be a competitive thing. And those guys know, write this down, if you're a communist in France and Italy, you have to counteract that message that you're a tool for the Soviets. Because the Soviets, it's like they give communism a bad name. And if you're trying to get elected, yeah, exactly. If you're trying to get elected as a communist in Italy and France, you want to be like, no, we're not going to cancel the next election and so forth. We just want to have, more benefits to people and, sock it to the wealthy and so forth. All right? Well, what major automobile corporation in Italy is supporting the Christian Democrats that doesn't want the communists there because they're afraid that maybe their company is going to be turned into a state-run entity and they want to be privately run because those guys make really lots and lots of cars, and they make really fast sports cars too.